So on the Underdog Chronicles today, we have Zainab Choonara as our guest today. She is a final year art student at the University of Pretoria, whose article was featured in My View by Robin Sasson and other writers, and has displayed many of her artworks online and in various galleries. Welcome, Zainab. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today, and I can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for having me. It's an honor for me to be here and to be interviewed. So yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so just so we can like both ease our nerves, um, mainly my nerves because I'm freaking out right now. But what would you say is the song that you are currently listening to, but like on repeat? Like you've listened to it like 5 times in one day.
So that Hunger Games song by Olivia Rodrigo, I watched the movie this weekend and it was
Yeah.
such a great song and it's such a great movie. And I thought, wow, she really spent so much time thinking about the lyrics. And if you've read the book, you'd know every single line of that song means something. And I just thought it was genius. So that's what I've been listening to for the past few days.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. I've been seeing like videos and like snippets of it and I'm like I really want to watch it. So I mean if you say it's good, I'm sure it's really, really good.
No, it's the best. I think like from all the books, they managed to get a lot of what was in the book in the movie, which is so rare. And yeah, it's an amazing movie. I would 100% recommend it to anyone to go and watch, especially if you're an original Hunger Games fan. It's amazing. I loved it.
Okay. I'll take your word for it because if you're saying that it's really close to the book, like often like movies just steer 100% away and you're like, how does this at all speak to what the book was saying? But if you're saying that it's like aligned with the book, now that is something that people should definitely see. Um,
Mm,
and I think now
yeah.
like yeah, people are probably gonna be like, is this a promotion for the movie? But no. It was not in
I've accepted no money. I've accepted no money.
yeah, so we did not at all plan this. So so Hunger Games, if you want to recruit us, yeah, please do because
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I've been a fan for like the past 10 years. So, it's about time I start getting paid for my services.
yeah, it's about time, girl. Um But speaking about Hunger Games, I saw that in the few snippets that I saw, but you would have obviously seen more of it in the movie. Like the costumes and the artwork in it was just incredible. Like the amount of detail they went into like the costumes and like the set and everything was just incredible. And that kind of leads me to my first question, because I wanted to ask you what drew you to pursue this degree in visual arts?
Okay, so this is something that I've only ever basically shared with my parents. Um, it was a long time ago. I was going through a Reader's Digest magazine, and those things are like old, old, old. My grandfather had a collection of like about 100 of them in his study. And one day I went and took one of those magazines and I was going through it, and there was an article about a man who created these scripts, these calligraphic scripts for a movie. And the whole article was spread out over like 5 pages, and I think I must have read it like 4, 5, 6 times, just soaking in everything. And he explained his whole journey as an artist, how he started, drawing, and then it led to calligraphy, and then he led to the it led to the movie industry. And I read that and I was like, wow, this is insane. How can someone just using their hands, just using text, and it's an archaic form of, communication, it's writing, and made a whole career out of it. And I thought, wow, I can do this. I have the ability to do this. And that's when I started, looking more into the world of art. That's when I picked up a pencil and said, let me let me try sketching, let me try drawing and painting and sculpting and working with, all these different visuals that I want to create in my own style. And it sort of went from there, it just went next stage, next stage, next stage, and then eventually it led me to, where I am now, studying towards a degree in art. I still don't know, like, if it's gonna be worth it, but I have so many ideas of where I want to take this degree, where I want to take the experience that I've, gathered in this past 3 years so far, and see where the world, will lead me. So it all started from that article, from that interview with that person, that artist. I don't even remember what his name was, but all I remember reading from that was he made a career out of something creative, and I wanted to do the same thing. So yeah, that's where it started. That's where it all began.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like, yeah, it's crazy how like a mundane or like, insignificant thing, like something that's been lying around in your house for like years, suddenly like
Mm.
kind of it has the power to change your life. And I think
Mm.
that's like I guess, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But it's one of the amazing things about art is that it can be sitting there for years, and then one day, like you could see like a leaf or a cloud. Okay, I'm using very like childlike images here, but
But
um
that's what art is. You're absolutely right. It's things that are already there, but you just need to look at it from a different perspective, from a different view, or maybe just read more into it. And that's, what I've been learning. It's about taking things that are everyday objects in life. Like if you think of something like a teacup or tissue or a piece of fabric that you engage with on a daily basis, that can be made into an artwork. It can be elevated and put into a space of like a gallery or something. And, that is an artwork because as it is, it's everywhere around us. Art isn't just um, confined to, pencil on paper or paint on canvas. It's everything in our lives that make up who we are. And I think that's really beautiful. The most beautiful thing about art is that anything can be made into an art object.
wow. I don't know if I need to ask you any more questions. This is just you've given me so much like already. Like wow. I feel like I should have paid to do this interview because I'm just like opening my mind up and also just like helping me see it in like a different perspective, which as you said is what art's all about, is having a like a new perspective, offering a different perspective. Um and that kind of, you told me that that this writer, this the interview about this artist who who's like the article which you read like 4 to 5 times um greatly inspired you to like start like looking towards like visual arts as actually like a career. um who would you say is your biggest like influence, or like how do you draw inspiration for your work?
Um, so it goes back to again, looking at everyday objects. It's what is your routine every day? So one thing that I have been, trying to do for this past half year, in my third year of studying was trying to create artworks out of things that are intangible. So if you think of text, if you think of words, they're tangible on a paper, but what if you had to make it into an object? What if you had to, actually touch and feel those words? Bringing that into the physical space instead of just having it, in its book form. Um, so I look at my daily routines. What are the words that I speak? A lot of my work is very closely linked to my religion, to Islam. So there's a lot of repetition of texts, of scripts, of different words, of different verses from the Quran that I engage with on a daily basis, and what I know many Muslims engage with on a daily basis. So my inspiration comes from there. It's from taking this thing that's intangible and giving it a tangible space in this world. And it's difficult because, how do you do that sometimes? It requires a lot of thinking, a lot of finding objects in your life, in your space. Sometimes it can even be just in your room, that you use to give this idea of repetition, of something being recited or being read, or just giving it that tangibility. And it's something that I see a lot of artists work with. There's an incredible artist called Willem Boshoff, who had his exhibition up in my first year at the Javits UP. And he only works with words as well. But his idea stems from finding links between English and Afrikaans, because Afrikaans is his first language, and he had to learn English when he became a teacher. So the way that he is able to mesh the two languages together, but it's in such a tasteful way. It's in such a, like, you would never think of there being this sort of link between them. And, his work massively influences what I do. There's another artist in Brooklyn, New York called Camila Janan Rashid. Her work also deals with text, and the way she manipulates it is she draws inspiration from her father's own study notes. So she works with his annotated text. So, for example, she'll have like a page from a book, and she'll use the words that he wrote in it. So it's so amazing how she's able to weave these words together, and then she forms her own visual poetry of these words using her own father's words, and then she mixes in her own words, and then she mixes in someone else's words. So it's insane the amount of information there is out there, the amount of artists who see things in a different way. And that influences me now to, how can I put my own mark in the art industry? How can I bring something new and fresh to this big world? It's a bit intimidating. A lot of the time I sit there and I think, can I actually do this? Is my work even good enough? But it's exciting. It's really, really exciting.
So you say that you're like a lot of what I'm like the theme that I'm like seeing a lot is text. The
Mm.
kind of just like the visual poetry of like either doing it in terms of translating text into objects or um just or like using other mediums to express something that like normally would just be like written on a paper, using words. And that kind of brings me to my next question, where I know text is probably one of the themes, but what other themes are kind of a focus of your work?
I focus on bringing the Muslim woman experience to my art. Um, there's a lot of things that mainstream media that people don't see on what it's like to be Muslim, what are the daily routines that we go through, and specifically for Muslim women. So my one project that I did at the beginning of this year at the beginning of the second semester, sorry, was I took my headscarves, and the way that we tie it, we need a lot of pins to secure it on our head. And the one day I was tying my own scarf, and one of the pins caught into one of the threads, and it sort of pulled and create this ripple that, you know, when I see a ripple in a scarf, I think, oh God, I need to throw it away. It's damaged now. But I thought of it and I said, what if that was a way of drawing? What if you took a pen and intentionally pulled onto the threads of a scarf, and it created this, insane pattern everywhere. And it spoke on many different themes because not only was I dealing with text, I took the pen and I, pulled a specific text into the headscarf, and I used a safety pin. And it sort of related to what is my idea of safety as a woman. Like, what do I allude safety to? Because we live in this country where, we never know who's next, who's going to be attacked next, who's going to be, in a vulnerable situation. And just using a safety pin and using it on my headscarf, it sort of gave this confirmation that my headscarf, the way that I dress, is my safety. My religion tells me to do this, and I do it with intention, and I do it with wholeheartedly, because that is what it asks of me, and I know the reasons why I have to dress the way that I do. And it just it's sort of like a hug you give yourself. It's like, yes, this is why I'm doing it. This is like, this means something to me. It speaks to being a Muslim woman, and it can speak to the broader spectrum of women. You know, maybe it can inspire someone to start wearing a scarf, or to, look up what is it about Muslims and Islam out there. So I think that's one of the things that I am, in fact, it's the main thing that I am, just trying to inculcate in my artworks, making it relatable not only to Muslims, but to the broader spectrum of women, or even anyone in this world that can relate to what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with my artworks. That's the direction I'm going in.
That's it's quite a like a I don't know, it's quite like a beautiful way to see it. Is to like to not just you not only like you have like a very kind of like selfless approach when it comes to your artwork in terms of like where you draw your themes and who your art kind of serves in a way. Because I've come across quite a few artists where they make art and they talk about a struggle that is relevant and important and something that people should be, aware of and something people should respect um, and be educated on. But oftentimes, in doing that, they don't really talk to anyone else except like the small fraction of like the people that they're trying to, to reach, which makes sense because sometimes you need to you need to dial down and you need to speak to very like small fraction of people. You need to be very specific because of the message and the people that you're trying to reach. Um, but it really is incredible when you find artists that, although their art is specific, it's also not it doesn't create any boundaries to anyone else who'd like to, you know, to explore the themes or to for the themes to be relatable. If that makes any sense. Um,
Yeah, no, that
just
makes perfect sense. And I think what you're saying is really important, because there are artists who dedicate their entire practice to, highlighting and making people aware of the struggles of someone else. And that is very, very important in the world of art. Um, in terms of community engagement, which I found was a very big portion of um, my my projects for this year. And it's something that artists need to be aware of, because we can, delve into this um selfish way of thinking that, oh, I'm just creating art for myself, I just want to paint pretty pictures. But if you really want to make an impact in this world, in the art industry as a whole, you need to understand that your art has the ability to affect people more than you. And it can even bring concern, to something that is really wrong in this world. And I think that's important for artists to understand.
yeah. So, And you spoke about community engagement. Could you tell us a bit more about that? Like what does it mean for like you as a visual art student and as like a, in a broader sense as an artist? What does it mean? Like what does community engagement mean?
So at the beginning of this year, we did a community engagement project with members of Reliable House. Now, Reliable House is part of the University of Pretoria's it's it's sort of like a rehabilitation center, but they're not too concerned on calling it a rehabilitation center, but it's basically for men who are homeless, men who, have been through um, you know, intensive drug usage and basically have, just had a real tough time in life. And Reliable House is basically a place where they can reintegrate back into society. So they teach them basic life skills. They teach them how to work in a garden, how to create a CV, um, how to read. Some of them can't even read also. So we did a project where we had to go and spend some time with a group of these men. We were split into about 4 groups, and we just started off talking to them, getting their backstory, and trying to connect with them. Sorry. And what our objective was to create a book with them. It could be anything that they wanted to do. So an example, a really, nice example that one of the groups did, this is now in the previous year, was they created a recipe book where everyone contributed some recipe that they had from their granny or from their sister or from whoever. And they made this recipe book, which was so beautiful. I thought it was really nice. And what we did, my group specifically, is we created a storybook where each man in our group had a chapter dedicated to him. And, the whole book read like he was narrating his own life. And we took some pictures of them, in and around their spaces. And it was a very emotional book because some of these men have been through really traumatic experiences. And at the end, we managed to get this book out and printed, and it looked, it was an emotional piece, in itself. And we spent a lot of time, interviewing them, speaking to them, just giving them compassion and, trying to get them to speak because it's difficult for someone to open up just like that. And so that was just, at the tip of the iceberg of what community engagement can really be about. There are other artists who are, fully functioning working artists in the world who do so much for underprivileged communities. They actually go the extra mile and, manage to get sponsorships from people that can actually help them, not just in an artistic way, but in a way that, benefits them, whether it's financial benefit or whether it's by food or by clothing or something. It's about giving back, to people who can never do anything for you. My favorite artist who is primarily engaged with community engagement is what's his name now? El Cid. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's from Tunisia or Algeria or something. I think Tunisia. And my favorite project of his was he painted this huge mural. It was like spaced out over different houses. And because it was the houses are, they all stacked on top of one another. It was really tricky to do it, and you can only see the full image if you're standing from a specific spot. And the whole reason for him doing that was the residents of that community were all garbage collectors in Egypt. And, they always felt like they were the lowest of the low within society as a large. And he really told them, you don't have to be ashamed of who you are. What you do is impactful and it's beautiful. And, we're going to pay homage to you. And he did a bunch of good stuff for them. He painted the mural. Not only did he do that, but he got them noticed in the world, and they were so appreciative of it. And I think that's something that I want to do something on that scale one day. So yeah.
Oh, I had no idea how much, yeah, how much community engagement actually like means. I was thinking much like much more textbook definition of it. But this is it's incredible. It's like something like, I mean, art is one of those kind of mediums of like reaching people in a way that they haven't been reached before. And most of the time without words. Um, and it's incredible what people are doing, even what like you've done, like with the storybook that you did about those men, and you told their stories. I mean, I'm sure most of their life I mean, being homeless, being, having gone through so much, their morals and their self-esteem must have become so low, and just they probably like must have, when you met them, been healing from being like very damaged people. Um, and something like a storybook or something, like recognizing their story and telling their story, can be so impactful and so healing for them, that someone sees you, that you are seen. That's incredible. I never knew that there was, I mean, I've heard of like projects and stuff, but I didn't know that this was like an actual thing that the university is offering, and also like focuses on as part of your kind of degree. Um, and yeah, it's just wow. What would
Yeah, it
you
was a
sorry?
I'm sorry. No, no, I just meant to say it was a very intense project, and we learned a lot of life skills from that.
So you can interrupt me as much as you want. Um, but actually, speaking on that, you said it was a very intense project. Could you like maybe share with us like a few of the details, like kind of run through the details of that project and what it was, what you had to do for it, like get into like a bit of like the nitty gritty, like the technicalities and all that.
Mhm. Um, well, I won't say too much because I tend to complain a lot, but it was intense in a way that it was an environment that we were unfamiliar with. And we had to sort of navigate ourselves in this space. And I mean, if you're surrounded by, men who have so much, some of them had a lot of anger in them, some of them had just deep sadness. And it was intense in a way that we had to, sit there and engage with them and try to find some common ground, first of all, because we needed to gain their trust. Not in a bad way, obviously, not in a bad way. We just had to, try to get them to engage with us and, understand we're doing this for them. And we got a bit of pushback from a few of them because they kept asking us, what are we going to get out of it? Are we going to get monetary value? Or, is it going to be, how are we going to benefit from it? And we were a bit stumped a few times because we had assumed our lecturer had explained the whole project to them, and yeah, they were asking us all these technical questions, and we didn't know how to answer them. I mean, we obviously knew no one's getting any money from this. We're not even getting any money for it. And yeah, it was an experience. But, I learned a lot from it.
Speaking of intense experiences, what challenges would you say you faced so far in your artistic journey? And how have they like contributed to your growth as an artist?
um, well, one of the main things was I I didn't quite know what the art industry is all about. I mean, I did a little bit of homework um before I even filled out my application to come and study. but I had no idea what it really entailed. My whole objective was I'm going to go to university and find out. I'm not going to go in with already a prejudice or, you know, um, with already an idea of what I'm going into. I just went completely blind into it. And I think one of the things that like really shocked me, but it was for the better, was I realized it's not just about creating something that's pretty. You have to give it meaning, you have to give it substance, you have to give it integrity. And sometimes it doesn't look pretty. Sometimes it's not going to look and feel how you want it to be, but because it has that intrinsic value, that is it. That is an artwork, finish, complete, step away. So that was it's still a challenge for me because I'm always trying to make things look pretty. And it's something that it's a challenge for me because my lecturers will say it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to look like this. It doesn't have to do that. And I'm like, but I want it to. So that was that's still my main challenge that I face um with every single project. It's that tension between I know it has value, but it looks ugly, but I want it to look this way. So it's something I still struggle with to this day. Like I've had a few wins here and there, like with some projects, I managed to get that balance right between intrinsic value and looking nice. But sometimes it just completely slips. So I mean that's how art is. I've learned to accept that that is what it is. You give something your integrity, you give it time, patience, and make it so that if someone asks you anything about it, you'll know exactly what you're talking about. If you're going to slip onto the side of I just want it to look aesthetically pleasing, I see myself losing grip on what it is. But it works. It works itself out in the end. So yeah, but that's my main challenge.
Okay, let me just. Okay, so before we got cut off, um, you were talking about like kind of the challenges that you faced on your like artistic journey so far, and I'm sure like they, I'm sure there'll be more lessons along the way as there are with like anyone's journey where it's like you think you have it figured out and then suddenly you don't, um, and like I think high school and varsity was a big like was quite it's quite the experience when it comes to teaching us like lessons and like humbling us and being like, hey, like you're not on the top of the world yet, honey. Like it's gonna be a continuous like journey. And kind of like speaking of journeys, where do you see yourself as an artist in the next few years?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um, I don't know. Like, there's so many different ways you can engage with the art world, and so many different ways you can take your career. And I think what I've really been interested in for quite some time now is, just traveling to different countries and, you know, going and exhibiting in different galleries, meeting new people. That is what artists do. They spend time creating work. There's time for that, and then there's time for exhibiting. And I really want to be, um, going from this gallery to that gallery, this exhibition to that exhibition. Um, it, I just feel that that's what I want to do. That's what I've imagined for myself for a long time now. But reality is, not all artists get to be part of that part of the art industry. It's insanely difficult, and it's, you have to have a lot of resources at hand, and it's a challenge, to get to that level. Um, one of my lecturers, she's always somewhere. She's always going somewhere, whether it's to like France or where was she recently? Austria or Romania or something like that. And she'll speak about her travels, and we're just like, "Oh, one day it's gonna be us." And it takes a lot of work. What we don't realize at this stage of our career, at our student level, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of courage. And with that comes a lot of disappointments as well. So there's a lot of life learning still left to do. But what I pray for and what I, hope to see for myself in the next few years is just, being an artist who is everywhere and nowhere all at once. uh, I love that idea of just, being invited to exhibitions. And the one thing that's on my goal list for now, I mean, it has been there on my list from the beginning of this year, was the Islamic Arts Biennale that just recently launched. This year was the first year that it ever happened, and it was in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And I was like glued to their Instagram page. Anytime they post something, I would just like read it, screenshot it, make notes. And I really want to be part of that exhibition. And because I feel, my work, I could imagine it there. I could imagine it being, received by Muslims, by people who can identify with the objects that I use, with the artworks that I make, the themes that I'm, engaging with. So that's at the top of my list right now. So I'm just hoping I get an email one day saying, "Hey, would you like to be part of this?" But that's what I want to do. I want to be an active member of the art industry. Like, you read of people who regret the decisions that they make, and then they don't even pursue the career that they've studied for. And I don't want to be that person. I want to be part of the industry. I want to make an impact. I want to reach people. I want to, I'm not going to say teach, because a lot of artists do, give lessons and teach people how to do stuff. I don't think I'm a very good teacher, and I have tried it. I have tried, engaging with kids, engaging with even young adults also, and it's just not my thing. It's not one of my strengths. Maybe it can develop over the next few years. I don't know, but I'm not a very good teacher. However, there is a demand for art as as something that can be learned. So there is that option available. It's just not on the table for me right now. Um, and also there's this thing called artist residencies where, a bunch of artists get together and they'll spend some time in different parts of the world also. I know one of my lecturers, her name is Shanaz. She went to an art residency in France, and during that residency, she met, I think, like a cinematographer and from Poland or Norway or something like that. And um, she had such a wonderful time there, just creating art with the facilities that they had at this residency. And I just thought, wow, I really want to do that. Just be in a constant state of learning, be in a constant state of, I don't know enough and I need to know more. And, that's how knowledge gets passed on. You can educate someone on something, they can tell you how to do something, that could improve your own artistic practice. And I love that. I love speaking to other artists, speaking to, curators, speaking to other students also. I met some students from UJ a few weeks ago, and they were so kind, they were so funny, and we realized we all have like the same problems studying. We can relate to each other, with the struggles that we go through. So yeah, I love connecting with people. I just want to put myself out there and really be an active member in the art world.
Oh. So, like, so would you say that where you see yourself is, um, obviously doing tons of these residencies, because I can hear from the way you talk about it, you like, you want to be on that plane like more than like 12 times a year, going somewhere new, meeting new people, collaborating, integrating ideas and learning. And I really, I believe, and I know that I'm going to be seeing you in that exhibition one day, that one that you want to go to, which the name which I can't pronounce properly. But yeah, we're going to be cheering on for you. Um,
Thank you so much. I really hope so.
and hopefully one day when you're up there, I'll be able to bag an interview, or you'll be even able
Oh,
to
you'll
look
be the
back at this
first.
interview.
You'll be the first. I'll be like, no, not anyone else. Let me just go to Miriam first.
I would appreciate that. um, but it's kind of crazy what you were talking about. Like, I think as we're coming to the end of this interview, just how you kept talking about like kind of using like the theme of everyday life, the everyday person, the things that like um, we often may overlook that you see as, a potential object of art, something that can be transformed into art. And in a way, that is kind of one of the goals that I have for this podcast um, is to look at the extraordinary lives of ordinary people, um, and to also use it as almost a diary entry for all of the people that I interview, so that one day when you're at that art exhibition, or one day when you're like doing going to the galleries, going to the art residencies, you can always like look back and listen to this interview that you did years ago, or even maybe a year ago. Maybe things will change in a year, but you can always look back and see this mundane little, um what is a little mundane conversation between two friends, as a person you were, a few months ago, a year ago, or years ago, and just look at it and be like, oh wow, look at where I've come and look at where I've started. um so yeah, just I don't know, just I felt I'm sorry to be promoting this podcast, but I yeah, just really, what you were talking about just like really resonated with me, because I was like, I guess this is a form of art in a way, um, in some kind of way, this is a form of art. So thank you for kind of opening my eyes to that and reminding me that it is okay if it's not as perfect and as pretty and like the first few tries, even like the first 10 tries, as long as it's telling a story, and offering a new perspective. So
Mhm.
really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, I'm glad that, I'm glad that you took that from this interview because a lot of people, they'll focus on one thing and don't and completely, disregard what wins they've had before, to get there. And that's as you put it, it's art on its own. And I took it also as a diary entry because journaling has been something that I've been trying to do for the past few weeks. Just to, make sense of everything in my head. And this is how I see this interview right now. I'm like, you know what? This is one day I'm gonna come back to this and I'm gonna say, wow, that Mariam, she got me to speak and she got me to open up to what I wanted to do. And, if I've achieved it, then well done. And if not, then it's still to come yet. But yeah, no, I should be thanking you, honestly. It's such an honor to have someone ask me to be interviewed and, to just give me the space to speak what I want to say about my work, about my career, about my studies. I'm very grateful to you. And I wish you every success in the future.
Thank you so much. I wish you the same. Incredible. Thank you for your kind words. Just as a final like takeaway um, before we continue our complimenting one another. Um, Just as a final takeaway, what advice would you say for other visual arts students or aspiring artists?
I would say read. Read as much as you can, whatever books you can find, even if it's just novels. Read, 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 because reading will expand your your brain. It will open new pathways that you didn't know could even be opened. Um, and and I'm just speaking from experience. I'm literally just speaking from experience. It might be different for other people, but reading and just taking that time out of your day, not even reading on your phone, just read an actual book, pick it up and engage with it. Um, you will find that you can do so much more than you could ever imagine yourself to do. Um, if anyone wants to gain knowledge, if anyone wants to, you know, try to think creatively, read. Just read whatever you can, whether it's art journals or sculpture books or painting books or books on aesthetic values. Just read, and that will you. What if you make that part of your life, you will never have a problem with thinking creatively or even just trying to find inspiration on different mediums to work with. I would thoroughly just say read and gain knowledge. And I go back to my lecturer that, the one that's always traveling around. Her name is Diane Victor. And when we see her walk into the studio, it's like, when your mom comes home and you're like, oh, let me go trouble her. So because whenever you speak to her, she has such knowledge on anything. You'll tell her what you're working with. She will be able to tell you how you can take it further. She can give you a list of artists that have worked in the same medium, and she'll tell you where you can find more artists or more ways to, make your work better. It's like she has so much knowledge up in her head, and it's insane. Literally, when she walks in the studio, everyone's like, oh, Diane's here, let's go speak to her. So it's just constantly being in a state of learning, and with that, you need to read, you need to educate yourself. Lecturers aren't going to tell you to read. There might be one or two who force you to do some readings, but on your own, you need to be disciplined enough to say, I'm going to go and take a book and I'm going to read what art is all about. Even if it's from like the 1980s or early 2000s, pick that book up and learn something, because there's no doubt you will find something there that relates to what you're trying to do and how you can improve your artwork. So yeah, that's what I have to say to anyone who is trying to get into visual arts or fine arts or whatever it is. Educate yourself. Just read and soak in as much knowledge as you can. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's all I heard was read, and I'm like, okay, yes, ma'am, I will be reading. Um, Thank you so much for this interview once again. It was an absolute honor to to be able to share your story. And I look forward to having more conversations and growing with you. Um, yeah, thank you, Zainab.
No, thank you so much. It's my honor, as I said before, to be here. And yeah, I think, this is such an interesting, way of, speaking to someone in a professional but casual way, and I feel like if I manage to, speak to any of your listeners or whoever, and if they manage to learn something from what I said, I would be so happy. And yeah, I'm grateful for this opportunity. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. If you enjoyed that episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on our various socials. And if you'd like to follow Zainab Choonara's journey, I will attach her socials down below. And until next time, keep safe and keep being extraordinary, underdog.